last couple of weeks. So today actually is the first day of spring in New Zealand.
Oh, nice. You wouldn't believe the things Luke and I said about you when you couldn't hear us.
Oh, I don't blame you. My ears weren't bleeding; they were full of blood.
Nice.
So good, mate.
How long? This
now I can't hear you. Someone's gone off again.
You can't hear me?
Can you hear us, Butch?
Yeah, now it's come back on. It keeps going off, and then it goes dead. Nothing, and then now you're back on.
Okay, good. Well, I think they're taping us now, so whenever you're ready.
Okay, mate. Well, it's all good. Yeah. So,
can you hear me, Butch?
What are we up to?
Can you hear me?
I can't hear you, John.
Oh, you can't hear Mark. Okay, so he's trying to.
Yeah, no, I can't. I can only hear you come on every now and again. I can't hear another voice.
Huh. Okay.
That's weird.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
Yeah.
What about John?
Yeah, you can hear me, I think.
Yeah. What about Mark?
Mark, why don't you try and say something?
Mark, I could see your name has got a microphone with the line through it right now, Mark.
Yeah, because I can't hear Mark either.
Now. Nothing?
I can hear you.
Yeah, so where's the problem?
I'm not sure. I can't hear Mark, so I don't know what happened there.
Yeah.
I don't have a muted mic anymore.
Okay, now I hear Mark. I heard Mark there, yeah. It's weird.
I can hear you, Mark.
Yeah, I think every now and again we can hear each other, then it goes blank for a while, completely blank.
We'll work with it.
Yeah, we'll just fake it.
Yeah.
We'll fake it. Because I took my mic off, actually. So
okay, I can hear you loud and clear now, Mark.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're going, mate.
Good. All right.
Is it Crowther or Crowther?
You got it right the first time. Perfect.
Crowther.
Yep.
All right.
All right. Go ahead. You can bring it back from commercial.
Okay. And welcome back, Can Crushers listeners. It is I, the English professor. We are joined today by John Crowther, author of Blood, Sweat, and Cheers, biography of Luke Williams and Butch Miller. And also joining us today is one half of, whether you knew them as the Sheepherders or the Bushwhackers, we are joined as well by Butch Miller. Gentlemen, this is a real thrill.
G'day, mateys. You're looking good. Bloody lovely, tell your mother.
There's no better way to start a podcast than that. Thank you both for coming on. Let's touch on the book a little bit before we get into some road stories, maybe, from Butch.
Okay, absolutely.
Tell us everything, John. How'd you start this? The Kickstarter, which the link is in it, guys. So go ahead, back this and buy it.
Well, actually, let's see, I want to say 2020, we were a little bit heading into COVID or just getting into COVID, the head of it. And I'm pretty close with Luke. Luke and I have known each other for a bit as I've been publishing, as you know, a lot of these wrestling comics. And Luke reached out to me and asked if I'd be interested in doing a prose book on the Bushwhackers. So for people who know me from comics, understand this is not a comic book. So he reached out to me. I said, how could I turn that down? So he connected me with Butch, and we decided to go from there. So basically, every Wednesday night, like we're doing right now, at this time, for about a year, we would do what Butch liked to refer to as our three-ways. And we would get on and we would talk for about 2 hours. We would just talk wrestling, the history of the Sheepherders, the history of the Bushwhackers. And even before that, the history of the New Zealand Kiwis is what they were called when they first arrived in Canada. So we taught, and we just got it all down, put it all together, and decided to launch this Kickstarter to give people an opportunity to get in early on the book. Eventually, it will be on Amazon, but this gives people an opportunity to get a few unique items, such as autographed copies of the book. We've got a limited edition cover that there will only be 50 numbered copies ever provided to the public. So for collectors, big fans of the Sheepherders or the Bushwhackers, it's really a good opportunity to grab some unique items that you'll never be able to get anywhere else.
As far as your research and what you learned about Luke and Butch, would you say, without giving too much away, are they closer to the ruthless, vicious sheepherders we saw in Jim Crockett, or the lovable, huggable bushwhackers we saw working for Vince McMahon?
No, in real life, they are as lovable and huggable as you can get. I mean, honestly, I've really become very fond of both of these men. I mean, they are such wonderful human beings. But would I want to get on their bad side after watching some of those old tapes and hearing these stories? No, I wouldn't want to get on their bad side either. But I think in reality, they're a lot closer to the lovable guys that we know from the WWE.
You got to remember too that. Can you guys hear me? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. You got to remember that when we were the Sheepherders, that was the style that was just starting to develop in those days. And I had a style like that when I started professional wrestling. So Luke used to first of all have a Gorgeous George type gimmick. That he had a lovely gown, that he had the lovely blonde hair, and the trim black beard. And he used to lead me to the ring with a chain around my neck, and I'd be going all crazy and everything. By the time I reached the ring, I was bloody blowing up. It was all right for him. I was chasing people and running through chairs and everything else. So that's how that all started. And but we wouldn't have lasted as long as we did with the WWE, because all that blood and guts and hard stuff, we used to have to fight our way into the arena. They'd have to either hide our cars in the arena, or they'd have to be watched by the police the whole time. We'd fight our way back out of the ring. They'd be waiting for us afterwards. We'd go out. Sometimes they would have got to our cars. The windscreen would be smashed. The bloody mirrors are smashed. They'd slash all your tires. And this was constantly right throughout Puerto Rico, through Texas, through Florida. No matter where we went, it got really violent. And we were fighting literally for our lives. All those years, all that time in Puerto Rico, they didn't have ringside because of this. And the guys would be in the dugouts, like the baseball dugouts, watching the matches. And when the end of our match came on, they would come running out, and the spectators would be jumping over the bloody barriers. And it was a fight, and they would help us fight the fans back into the dugout. So that's how it was. So, I mean, we were lucky to survive the time that we were the Sheepherders, leave alone with Vince. And then by the time we got to Vince, blood was basically a bit of a no-no with the AIDS around, and people were getting a little bit, wary of that and that. And when Vince mentioned, we're going to make baby faces of you, he said, "Oh, for God's sake, how the hell are you going to do it?" And that's what, and I jumped up on his desk. Never seen him in my life before. And he brought us up to Connecticut, flew us up there, business class, limos, the bloody lot, And he took us in there. And when he said that, I want you guys aboard, but I'm thinking of your baby faces, it was Luke, who had been a booker in quite a few territories. And, he was used to the other way where you... if you are the real bad heel, he would, you would do something and they'd change you to a baby face during a match or whatever. So Luke started doing, talking about that. And I could see on Vince's face, I'd never met him before, but I could see on his face that wasn't what he had in mind. So that's when I jumped up on his desk on my hands and knees. I had my nose, which is rather big. I'll give you a side profile. And I jumped up on the bloody desk, put the big nose right in this thing. I said, "Vince, if you can make baby faces out of these bloody faces, we're in 100%. And he starts laughing. He says, "Well," he said, "I've got Jim Duggan, I've got the macho man. I've got this guy, that guy. He said, are they good-looking guys? And, you know, then he said, don't worry. He said, even with those faces, I know I can make some money, make you guys money. So that's how it all started.
Wow.
And he was right. They were ready for that type of thing there. They really were. And the Bushwhackers really was the other side of my personality. I was always the jokester. I was always like putting refrigerators that are in the hall of hotels in front of Luke's door, and I'd run down to the lobby, and I'd ring him up and say, mate, there's someone down there wants to see you. You got to get down here fast. And you got to get out. He couldn't get out the bloody the Coke machine or the fridge, and then he'd say, Jesus, I get pissed off with that. And he says, why do you keep doing it? I said, because I get response like this. So how can I stop? So I always had that. So I always had that off the cuff sort of. My old man was a mad Northern Irishman and drank a bottle of whiskey a night, so you can imagine how I was brought up. So he had that sense of humor. So that's where it sort of developed from there. And Vince let it go. He didn't. We thought that he would. He said he wanted something between. I think it was the Moondogs and the Wild Samoans. So how can you get something in between that? And the first few weeks that we went around up in the New York area, it was around Christmas time after we'd done the vignettes, and they were having us. A fan would give us a beer to drink to the ring, and they had us coming in separate ways. And I could see that wasn't working. One of us would be coming down through the bleachers. One would be coming somewhere else. They kept switching the cameras, and it wasn't. And then all of a sudden, I said to one of the bookers, I forgot which one it was, just let us come in together, please. So let us come in together. I started marching because I walk a funny style anyway. I was born with really screwed up feet. I was born with what they call club feet. And then today they can fix them when you're 3 or 4 years of age. You can have an operation and they're right. But in those days, they didn't really know what to do. The same surgeon worked on your neck, on your finger, on your knee, on your foot. They weren't specialized, you know what I mean? So I had surgery when I was 6. But anyway, and a couple more. But they were never successful. They were always a funny shape. Tally Blanchard used to say, Jesus, Butch, you've got the ugliest ankles I've ever seen. And I said, really? What gives you the fucking first clue? You know, I mean, Jesus, even a blind man could have told me that. So I walked a little funny anyway. I exaggerated that, swung my arms a bit. The next time we went out, I saw the people swinging their arms. We're on the same show, but we were doing another tape. And they were already swinging their arms. I said to Luke, swing your fucking arms, mate. He says, I can't. I got a sore shoulder. I said, you want to make money? And Luke loves money. He said, oh, yeah. I said, swing those bloody arms, mate. Well, those arms went up as high as I've ever seen. They nearly done the bloody ceiling, mate. And away we went. From then on, that was it. And you know, people would recognize us by that. They would say, oh, you're the guys that swings the arms. And they knew the march off by hand. And if they saw one of us out with our wives on a rare day off, they'd say, oh, like to me, where's Luke? Like he's supposed to be here in my back pocket. And they'd say the same thing, you know. They didn't expect one of us to be separated from the other at any time. Airports, no matter where you were, it was the same thing. So, so those little character things that we did at the very start, those vignettes, they helped to show the people that here's two sort of crazy Kiwis coming in here. They didn't know the style we were going to wrestle then. nor did we. We just had to work things out. But we knew that we were going to, and we were lucky too, that Crocodile Dundee film had just been in the States, and that was the most successful overseas film at that time ever to be shown in the United States. And so that was still in their mind too. So that definitely helped. So the time was right for the characters that we became. So we had a bit of luck there too. You have to. And the guys we were working with were great, you know. So it all helps.
You brought up that you came in as the Kiwis in Canada first.
You guys there? I can't hear you.
You came in that you said you were the Kiwis first?
I can't hear a thing.
Butch, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I can't.
Okay, so Mark is asking. Mark is saying that you came in as the Kiwis initially in Montreal with the Vachons.
Is that an offensive term? Was that an offensive term or not? The Kiwis,
No,
New Zealand. No, it is not.
No, the Kiwi is our national bird, just like yours is the golden eagle. And a lot of people around the world call us Kiwis. You know, like the Aussies are called kangaroos, basically. And that's not offensive to them. And the Kiwi bird, it wasn't offensive. In fact, it makes you feel like they know a little bit about New Zealand. So it wasn't offensive, no.
Whose idea was the sardines, the fish, when you guys were working for Vince McMahon? You guys would eat the fish right out of the cans.
That was mine, because one, I knew Luke didn't like them, and two, I used to eat sardines. I loved them, and I knew the smell of them would get a reaction out of some people, and so they worked on that, and that was that. Any sickly bright idea that came out like that, you can guarantee it came from me. Luke was more like he was more refined. but Luke could be any character really, because he was that type of guy. He could play in a movie, and he could play all different parts, and he would do it really well and be successful at it. He was very good at copying things, very good at changing characters. I can't. I basically can bend it a bit, but I can't go out there and act like I'm gay, or act like I try, but everyone just laughs at me. And I said, "What's the matter? Why can't I do that?" Because you're too Butch.
Yeah, like Butch said earlier, back in New Zealand, you know, Luke's initial character was Sweet Teddy Williams, and he would come out and like an effeminate character. It was kind of like a mix of Gorgeous George, maybe a little what was his name? Rick the Model Martel. He would come out spraying perfume on everybody and in the air. That was Luke's initial character. And of course, Luke's not here, but Luke started wrestling, if you can believe this, at the age of 16. His first match at the age of 16.
And he wasn't a heavyweight. He was a light heavyweight. I don't remember his weight, but he wasn't very heavy. In fact, even as the Kiwis, he wasn't very heavy. He would eat and eat and eat and not put on weight. He had no fat on him, but he used to hit the gym all the time. But he was actually very lean, you know. And he used to be called, when he started in New Zealand, his first 3 or 4 years, he was called what they call a light heavyweight, which was a smaller division. And he was actually quite conscious of that when we first teamed up. And I used to say, who cares? It doesn't matter. And he actually, as that Gorgeous Teddy Williams, he got more heat because of his size. But just the average bloke in the crowd wanted to have a go at him, and that was the trouble.
and Butch was the opposite. Butch was known as the chest Miller. Butch was a bodybuilder.
The
Yeah, I was
Lex Luger.
known as Butch the Chest Miller.
Yeah.
Well, actually, it wasn't Butch then. It was Bob the Chest Miller.
Yeah.
Yeah, because when I was about 17, I was a skinny kid too, for about Luke's build, maybe skinnier. And when I started weight training, because I did it because I had another surgery on both of my feet, and I joined the gym to try and get them moving a little bit, and make me a bit mobile, which worked to a certain extent. It got me around, got me through all this. But yeah, what were we talking about then? Oh,
We're talking about your bodybuilding.
Yeah.
Yeah, the bodybuilder, yeah. And so I started, I got, like really involved, not involved, but I got into it. And I entered the contest because they all talked me into it. And I felt like a bloody idiot. I didn't know how to pose. I wasn't into the mirrors and into myself like that. But anyway, I got second in this Mr. Wellington bodybuilding contest. And they put my picture up on the wall with all these bodybuilders. Each one had won it. They put it up on there and they put mine in there. And I looked like the runt of the gym. And I was always embarrassed about it. I'd hide it and I'd find it and put it back up again. But no, it wasn't bad. But so that's where I started training there. What happened, I did a lot of heavy bench pressing and heavy pullovers. And I built, because I was young, 17, I built my rib cage right out. So I had this big, I went from a sunken chest, like a pirate's son, to to this big, bulging rib cage, but nothing on it. I had no chest on it, no meat, no muscle. So my mates used to all rib me about my bloody my bones on my chest sticking out, and then I developed the muscle around it. So it's a good way to do it when you're young, to be honest with you. But that's how they wouldn't do that today. But that's how it was. Because when I started weight training, the same as Luke, we didn't know nothing about training in New Zealand. No one knew anything. The only thing you had as a machine was a bench press, because you lifted it up off the bench, same as a squat rack, and you'd do bench presses, and the bar would be all over the place, and you'd lift your bum right up in the air, and we were probably doing more damage to our bodies than what we were doing good. We were really screaming. Anyway, it took me years and years to learn bodybuilding. I'm still learning it, and I love it. One thing I became, I always went to the training, and Luke did too. Luke was a good trainer too. The only trouble was that it was hard for him to get me out of there. I'd always say, just 10 more minutes, but no, he became a good, and he had his own gym there a long time in Florida, and he still goes to the gym, still looks great, so it's good. And it kept me alive. I mean, I nearly died with septicemia twice now, once in the States, once in New Zealand. And they said the only reason why you survived both heavy attacks was because your body was in good shape. So I was lucky, really, in that sense. Yeah.
Were you able to watch much American wrestling while you were in New Zealand, or anything from, say, England?
No, we had a few English guys come out, but when we started wrestling, TV only came to New Zealand when I was 16. That's when it came to New Zealand, just about 1960, 1960s, 59 or 60. And it came in black and white, one channel. It came on at 5:30 at night, and it went off at 9. Top Cat was the top program. Top Cat. And that was it. And then it was a couple more years, and then they extended the 9 o'clock, 8:39 to 10, Then we went up to 11, and oh wow, we could watch TV up to 11 o'clock. And then they got another channel, but wrestling was never on TV, never seen on New Zealand TV until I would say in the 80s. So we hadn't seen American sport. And most of the wrestlers who came out to wrestle in New Zealand were English. So we grew up more with an English style. You couldn't throw a fist, you had to throw elbow jolts. And we had to wrestle in the police used to require you to take a permit out if you were the promoter. And the ring had to be a certain size, which that measure with a bloody tape measure and all that shit. And they had 4 ropes like a boxing ring. And the bottom of it was like hitting the bloody the concrete, no bounce or anything. That's what we wrestled in for till when Luke and I went away. We'd still only been in the ring like that. We hadn't been. Well, I went to Australia, and Luke did on separate occasions for Jim Barnett, who was the promoter who went over to Australia, American promoter, and he did excellent in Australia because Australia was way ahead of New Zealand for wrestling talent and for TVs. They had, 4 or 5 channels in Australia at that time. So they've always been way ahead. The population has always been way bigger. So, And
So
I basically learned my craft more in that 3 months, 4 months in Australia than I did. And Jim Barnett didn't want me to come back. But my first daughter, Sharon, who was born in '69, she was about to get laid. She was only just about to hatch. And I kept on putting, my wife says, you got to come back, you're going to come back. In the end, I came back, and luckily, my wife was overdue by 2 weeks and still hadn't had it. And Jim Barnett wanted me to go straight back over there, but hell, I had a brand new daughter. And I was so I didn't go back at that stage, but I did go back later. But I learned a lot. And I learned a lot of a guy, an Indian guy who worked in Toronto, and his name was Tiger Jeet Singh. And they had they brought him in there, and he was a very, very successful heel. And he used to say to me, if you're out of the ring and you see something, pick it up, slam him into it. So he brought that out of me, looking for objects to use to get extra heat. And he had tremendous heat in Australia. And he had good guys to work with, like Mark Lewin and King Curtis and Mario Milano and some great American names. And Jim Barnett was selling out all the major cities in Australia, and that was really good. Whereas in New Zealand, we were working to very small crowds, and most of the smaller towns never even had anything bigger than like 400 or 500 people that you could fit in there. So it's a totally different thing.
How about the 1986 Crockett Cup?
Can't hear you, Matt.
All right. Somebody translate this. The 1986 Crockett Cup, when the Sheepherders fought the Fantastics and they lost before they were going to the Road Warriors. John,
I can't hear Matt.
Butch was asking you about the Crockett Cup when you guys faced what was it, the Fantastics?
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm even getting a bit of interference with you now too, unfortunately. But yeah, the Fantastics in the Mid-Atlantic, and they were great. The promoter from the booker from Dallas, Texas, came in there, and he took over. They asked Luke if he wanted to do it. And Luke said, no, I want to have a break from it because we had just come from Puerto Rico and he had the book there while we were there for nearly a year. And, you know, it was blood and guts and he was working his butt off. So I don't blame him, you know, turning it down. And I wasn't then, and I wasn't during my time, and I'm not now a good businessman or a booker at all. I'm just the guy that does the stuff in the ring, you know. I could give my suggestions. Sometimes that'd be okay, but I just couldn't sit down and ring guys and with a pencil and paper. I still can't. And so he turned it down. So they brought the booker in from Dallas. And Luke, if he was on this program now with you, he'd say it's the only thing he regretted in his whole wrestling career was turning down that book. Because if he had had the book, we would have been over to, he would have, but with, you know, a little bit of help, we would have been able to run that territory and really have made some bigger money and better business, even though we sold out different parts of that whole Midwest with the Fantastics week after week after week. We had something like 30 odd barbed wire cage matches, 32 or 33 in a row every night. Our heads and bodies were like shredded cabbage. And I've got to give it to those Fantastics. They never complained. They weren't big guys, but they never complained. They always fought. You know, you'd say, fight back, fight back. And they always fought back. And they were very, very good for us to work with, really. And so we went around with them for, I would say, a good 6 months. But I wasn't happy with what Bill was paying us. And he was putting on many, as they used to do in those days. He would come on with somebody when it built up to a big thing and put himself on the main event. And of course, we would still be wrestling last, and he would take the main event money or whatever. And you know, by this time, we had learned a little bit about money, and you know, and we weren't as gullible. Well, I wasn't anyway. Luke was never gullible with money, but I used to be. And so anyway, I just said to Luke, we hit Bill up for money, and he said, no. And I said, okay, I'm finished. And oh, Jesus. He called me, I wouldn't even talk to him. I said, no. And he offered me an extra, this is no joking in those days, an extra $1,000 a day if I would do it. Now, whether I would have got that all the time, but I wouldn't have gone to the ring without it. He would have tried to work some way to screw me. But I said, mate, why weren't you giving us even half that extra each night when we were making all that money for you? We didn't see it, so I wouldn't talk to him. So we went off after that, and Luke was prepared to go back and work for him. I said, absolutely no. I'm never going to work for that guy again. He's the only promoter that we, or I especially, ever walked out on. The only promoter ever. And we went to Florida for Florida Championship Wrestling, and had a good run there for a while until Crockett's took over Florida and a few other territories, and I forgot what it was called. Luke would know, but I forgot what he named it. And then Crockett signed us up.
When you were working when you guys were working for Jim Crockett Promotions, I remember one specific promo that you and Luke did where you brought out a drawing of a bathroom or a toilet, and you said the Road Warriors were in the toilet, and you made fun of everybody, and you called out the Four Horsemen, the Road Warriors, and it showed, first of all, you guys had a great sense of humor, but it also whetted our appetites for some matches that we never really got. Why didn't we see, the heel versus heel? Why didn't we see you against Arn and Tully or against the Road Warriors and Jim Crockett?
Well, what happened was we were the first heel tag team when we were in Texas working for Joe Blanchard. We were the first heel tag team to ever work against the Road Warriors in a place. There was a place that, oh God, it was in Texas there, and they had a lot of problems with it. It was a religious type place, and they had to storm the place. Do you remember that?
Is it Waco, Texas?
In Texas.
Probably in Waco, yeah. Probably Waco.
Yes, Waco. Well, we had this night in Waco, and we were booked against them the first time ever. They'd brought them in from Atlanta. They were hot in Atlanta, running over everybody. And Joe Blanchard had this thing. He was bringing in tag teams, supposedly, to beat us and run us out of Texas. And we were at the peak. We were filling up all the arenas, and no matter who they were putting us with, really. So anyway, in Waco, they brought in the Road Warriors, who they already had a year or so exposure on Atlanta TV. And we went and saw them in the dressing room, and they said, oh, that was the first time we'd ever met them. And they said, oh, well, obviously you guys are going to be, we'll be turning you guys babyface. And I piped up to Hawk, and I said, oh, I don't think so, mate. I think it's going to be the other way around. I think you guys are going to be taken. He said, don't be stupid. We're on that bloody, NBA, whatever it was. And so I just didn't say anything. So we get the bats sorted. We go out there. After about 5 minutes, Hawk is so blown up that he's leaning over the ropes, spewing. And all this spew was coming out of his mouth. And the TV camera's picking it up. And Animal won't tag him in because Animal's all blowing up. And Luke and I, the crowd wanted lynches, and the Road Warriors didn't know what to do because the crowd was cheering so much for them, they didn't know how to handle it. It was so funny to see. And I knew that would happen because we had stormed Texas and taken it, and they loved their TV and Texas, their TV that it was on. So they never forgot that. And Hawk and I, Animal was good too, but Hawk and I became really, really close friends. And he always used to say, Butch, when I retire, I want to buy a place just by you. I want you, my next door neighbor, and we're going to mow the lawns. And after we mow the lawns, we're going to have a beer over that fence, and we're going to talk about old times. And he used to say it over and over again. And one time we're working in the ring, and one of us said something, and I've got to say it. I always say sweet ass. You see? So he hears the sweet ass. He thinks I've said sweet ass. So he says, what do you mean sweet ass? This is in the ring. I said, I'm not saying sweet ass. I'm saying sweet ass. Well, it took him a while to get it. Well, we both started laughing with our hands over our heads in the ring, But they were, Hawk, I liked a lot. He was more natural. Animal was a little bit more on the vain side, but still a good guy. And they were a bloody good tag team. They were a good gimmick, but they never had to break into the business like Luke and I did, or like most of the other wrestlers did. They were pushed right from the start before they even knew how to wrestle because they both had the bodies. And they were you guys in Atlanta. When they first started off in Atlanta and running over the TV guys, who was just giving them their bodies. They were hurting guys real bad, and they didn't really even care because they didn't understand. They didn't know that side of the business, because they had never been hurt. Guys were too scared to give them a crack. Well, if they did something in the ring those early days when they worked with us, I gave them a little crack, just to let them know, hang on, this is how it goes. That's how I live in the business. And, and that's what you do. And that's how it was done. And so they were cool. I wish they had a run in with Vince as heels with us. And I really do think we could have made Vince some very good money. But Vince was funny he was like his dad. Tag teams, he very rarely would ever put a tag team as a main event in a pay-per-view or something big. He would put two top guys together, like The Rock and, another star. But as a tag team, he very rarely ever did that in a pay-per-view. He put them on the card and put them up a bit. But the one thing he did with Luke and I, no matter where we were on the card, after we'd been working there for about a year or 18 months, we were always the last match. He would do his angles with the main event. The match, he'd usually get a match going after intermission to get the people going again. Then he'd bring on the main event, and he would do it, especially if it was a screw job. They'd do the screw job, the people would be really pissed off, and then he'd have another match, quick match. Then we would come marching out with our music. The people were just about to leave. They'd sit down again. Now they're cheering you. Then they'd go home, and we called it the happy pattern. We sent them home happy. When they left the arena, all they could talk about, they'd forgotten about the screw. That they got reminded on TV, of course, but they forgot about that. They just remembered that last thing they'd seen. They loved it, and they went, oh, what a night, and they were in a happy mood. So that was a good idea, but the only trouble was we had to be there from 7:30 at night, because you had to be there half an hour before it started, and we were the last ones to bloody leave. Madison Square Gardens, and that they had to take us out, hiding us in ambulances and taking us all around New York and dropping us off somewhere in New York where we'd park the car, because they wouldn't let us out. They'd start rocking the ambulance and that, not to wreck it like they did when we were heels, but just because they were cheering and happy.
Wow.
So that was the difference there. Yeah.
You guys held titles just about. God, I'm sorry.
No. But Vince, he did look after us, and we enjoyed every minute of that WWF time. And I got to love Vince, to be honest with you. Everything he said, he did. I mean, you got to realize a lot of the guys, when they were giving their marching orders, of course they didn't like it. But there was a lot of talent around then, as you know. I mean, we were there when they had, all that absolute talent when we got there, from just before we got there. And for about another year or so, the amount of talent they had, it was all the top talent from all the top territories, and all had worked main events and all knew how to work. And it was incredible. Now, I mean, you can see they're struggling. It's not the guy's fault. They've got nowhere they can learn their craft or learn their trade. And that was the beauty of the whole thing. And I mean, God, I could name, if my memory was a little bit sharper, I could sit here and name 30 guys who you guys would know straight away, and you say, "Oh, great, he was great. This guy, the Randy Savages, the Hulk Hogan's, the Boss Mans, and it goes on and on. Shawn Michaels, Hitmans, and it goes on and on and on. And they now today, I don't honestly watch it at the moment, but now and again it's on when I flip, and I'll watch something if I know someone. But it's getting there because I'm nearly 100. I'm getting there. It's getting that way where I don't know many people on it now, which is natural,
Would you have liked the title run? Would you have liked a title run in the WWF? Would you and Luke have liked maybe to have been tag team champions one time?
Yeah, well, I think that's what you said, the title match. The titles didn't really worry us because, one, it would have had to go around the waist, and the Bushwhackers marching with a belt around the waist wasn't really Vince's idea. And also, two, we had a program going with the $1 Million Man and the IRS, one of the best tag teams that we worked for. And unfortunately, we went to England with that angle. They were going to drop the belts to us in England, and we were coming back with them. And IRS, $1 Million Man, fell in a little bit of family. He had to rush back the first night back to the States. And so we couldn't do that. He had gone. They put someone else with Mike Rotunda, so we just had to have normal matches. And there was another time when Buddy Blanchard and what was his name?
Arn.
His partner.
Arn Anderson.
Remember his name?
Arn Anderson.
Anyway, that was the same thing. And one of them got hurt, so we couldn't carry on with that program. So we had times where they were prepared to do it, but it had to be right. Why? I used to say to even Hacksaw Jim Duggan, he says, Butch, he's another good mate of mine, very close mate. And he used to say, Butch, look at me. I've got the flag. I've got the throne. I've got the bloody crown on my head. I've got the cape. I've got 3 belts. What more are they going to give me? He said, I even forget to do the ho, and he got that off
really good.
because I was the one that used to go, oh, yay. And then Luke started doing it. And so he says, what are they going to give me next? I'll be taking out the bloody chicken and Jake Snake. It was just too bad. He didn't need it. There's some things that people need. Some wrestlers need the belts. And you were talking about Mid-South. When they bought the 2 guys in, I'm losing it now. The Fantastic Kid. Even though they were great fighters and this and that, we got over quite strong, very fast, because we were working with Williams, Doc Williams, and Ted DiBiase, one-man gang, and we were just rushing over them as well. And so the booker said, and I had to believe him too, he said, they're not going to believe it unless they sneak over you somehow with the belts and then you are chasing them, because they're not going to believe that they are going to beat you every night. And, because that's just the way it was portrayed. And that was the right way. So they took the belts off us. We dropped the belts more or less the first time we ever were with them. Some way, I don't know. And they had them so we could do, all dirty things at the end, get disqualified, win the match. But then they were still the champs. So, and that worked. That's why it worked, because they weren't big guys, and but they showed a lot of guts and fortitude, and I've got to give them credit for working the Sheepherders style and doing it well. Never complained. They'd get the odd potato the same as we did. Never complained. They'd get the odd flag over their head, which shouldn't have been quite so hard. Never complained. So, and they're the guys you want to work with, because you're not out there to kill each other. You've got to go home to your wife. You've got to go home to your kids. You've got to work the next day and make money, put food on the table. But the younger guys that come in now, they don't realise that. They want to go up the top rope and come up and drop a knee over your bloody neck, right? And you're supposed to lay there, and some of them have never done it before. So they'd slam me and they'd say, stay there. I say, oh, okay. This is a better green, right? Up they'd go to the top rope. I was gone before they took off, for God's sake. I was over the other side of the ring. They were dropping the bloody knee on my throat and practicing on me. I've seen knees go right through guys' sternums. I've seen guys die in the ring, being killed in the ring. And it's easy. It happens. Shit happens. You got big, huge guys. I'm not talking about me or Luke, but big guys, 300-pound plus, were flying around like we used to when we were 200 pounds. And athletes, top athletes. Well, one slip on the rope, one adjustment somewhere, and anybody can make a mistake, even the experienced guys. But at least you've got a chance with them. The other guys, they want to do everything in the first minute. They're throwing each other outside the ring. They're doing this tremendous dive out through the ropes, knocking over two guys, getting back in the ring. Well, what more do you want? You've already pulled two guys out of the ring. Why should they get in and you only got one now? And then they want to do everything at once. So, but it's not their fault, because that's how a lot of them have learned by watching what's on. And that, unfortunately, is the only way. And you've got a few good training schools out there. Luckily, I can't name them all because I don't name them. I don't know them, but some of my mates are training guys real well, because they were great workers. And that must help them, but they don't have enough time. They're out there in the middle of the WWE ring with, basically a year's experience at the moment. You can't learn our business in a year, unless you're extremely, extremely talented or have an extremely great gimmick going for you, I guess.
A couple of more questions for you. I think I may know the answer to this, because you guys seem to have a great sense of humor, but talk for a second about the Royal Rumbles. It may have been you, it may have been Luke. I think actually it was Luke, where he came in, Earthquake grabbed him, threw him out, and he set the world's record for 4 seconds in a Royal Rumble. 3.9 seconds, Mark. Sorry. You guys okay with that sort of thing? Did you have a sense of humor about it?
I have never. I just got you. I'm having a job understanding you now too. Just a little, because it's echoing. But I remember that as plain as day. And when Vince said, told me when I was going out there, and then he said to Luke, Luke, I only want you in there for a couple of seconds. That was my idea for him to march out. And I could see Luke felt a bit strange, like, why should I just go in there and then go straight out? And you feel a bit, at least give me a few minutes or something. And I'm saying, yeah, because I knew I was going to be in there for 15 minutes and I'd be blowing up. And he'd be as fresh as a daisy. So anyway, and then I said, mate, why don't you do this? I said, go and march down, get in the ring, have someone meet you as you're coming through the ropes, take you across the ring like by your pants and your scruff of your neck, keep your arms swinging, go out that side and march around. Well, they talked about that for 20 years. They're still talking about it. Me, I was fucking sweating my ass off, trying to look busy, working like hell, throwing punch after punch, and then thinking, that bloody Luke, he's back in the dressing room. And here am I, working my butt off, blah, blah, blah. And then when it came payday, we both got the same money. Well, I'd go home. I've never let him forget it. He had to shout the beers for the next 3 months. And I thought that was yeah. So that's how that happened. They had it as a highlight, I believe, on the WWE for a while. Him,
yeah.
Not me. They didn't give a shit about me. They had him doing the march and marching back to the dressing room.
There was a Survivor Series. You teamed up with Men on a Mission, but you guys were all dressed up as doinks.
Yeah. Were they the doinks? Were they?
Yeah, it was you guys, and then Mabel and Mo. But you guys were all dressed up as Doink the Clown.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I don't really. I remember them being there. I don't remember much about the Men on the Mission. Those Men on the Mission came to San Antonio as under another name. They this was before, of course, WWE, and they came there and they worked against Luke and I, one of the first guys to come in and to drive us out of San Antonio, out of Texas, to get rid of us. Well, we had about 3 matches. We had a normal match. Then we had glove on a pole match. Then we had a barbed wire cage match as the final. Outside, I think it was in Austin. Sold out. There was a few other people that bring them for the card to make the card look good. Well, they were called, I know what they were called, the Zamburi Express. That's what they called themselves then, the Zamburi Express. Well, because they got their hands raised in those first couple of shows, and because there was a hell of a crowd at this place, they don't want to do the job now. They were huge guys, don't get me wrong. They were 400-pounders or something. But it wasn't about that. It was about we made them look extra special. Now it's our time, and our type of match, the barbed wire cage match, to take care of business. Oh no, they think it's them that's drawing the crowd. They think it's only them that's, blah, blah, blah. So I said, look, don't worry about it, mate. Jesus. Anyway, we ended up pinning one of them. I don't know. I did some bloody thing where I shouldn't have. I told the referee to count, which he did. I didn't get into trouble for it. Well, boy, did they want to kill me. This and that. And that they were the only ones, possibly, that I've ever had that trouble with in the whole wrestling years, except a little bit of time in India when we went to India and worked for independent promotions. And a lot of those Indian guys would cry, absolutely cry, if they had to do a job. Cry, no matter how it was done. No matter how it was done. You could make them look like Superman. They still weren't happy. They'd prefer to go in there, not get paid, don't care how it's done, as long as they got their hand raised. So they were in for a bit of a shock as well. Yeah, that was another time, another place, India. We did go back to India with Vince, and it was a totally different place then.
Mark and I saw you, saw the Bushwhackers in a small Pennsylvania town. Wasn't the World Wrestling Federation. It was after you had left. Small crowd. Still, you guys were a lot of fun. tell us about life after the WWF, what wrestling was like. Were you still living in the States and working in the States?
I'm getting such an echo that I really, really can't hear what you actually said. Could you repeat it, John? Because I might hear you.
Yeah, Butch,
I'm
he was.
getting an echo.
Yeah, Butch, can you hear me?
Huh?
Can you hear me?
No, I'm not. I'm just getting that. I'm getting an echo like I had last week, John, where I can't
Okay.
understand the words. Could you try someone else with a different mic or something?
John
Yeah.
John was wanting to know what it was like to wrestle outside of WWE.
Did you need to mute my mic?
No, you're back on. Can you hear us? Unmute. You're muted.
Yeah, he's muted his mic, I think.
Yeah.
There we go.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got mine on now. I heard that. Who spoke then?
Me? What was it like after WWE?
No, I can't hear it.
Butch, can you hear me?
I can hear you with an echo.
Okay, well, here, I'll say what he asked. Mark asked, what was life in wrestling like after the WWE, when you and Luke were wrestling in the independents?
Oh, okay. Well, after the WWE, we were very lucky that Vince still kept us reasonably strong on TV. He never, Atlanta wanted us to go there and offered us a deal. And Vince wouldn't release us because we were under contract to Vince. And Luke was raring to go. He wanted to go no matter what. And Vince said, listen, he said, they're only going to use you guys. He said, the way it is now, they'll try and make fun of you. They'll use you and they'll just really throw you out. And he said, I don't want to see you do that. So he, for the first couple of years that we weren't working for the WWE, he paid us a salary, a living salary each week for, I would say, 2 or 3, might even be 4 years, and kept us going and let us do the spot shows as well. So I've got to give him credit for that because he knew what WCW would have tried to do to us. I could see it as well. And so when we first started doing the independents, we couldn't believe it because we went from the most professional wrestling organization that ran the most professional wrestling shows that I have ever seen from in those days and today. And they ran that, and here we went into some of these Catholic halls, Boy Scouts halls, or that. And, nothing wrong with it. But the guys couldn't work. They all had gimmicks. And the guy would come up to me with a mask on, a T-shirt, covered up, because they didn't have good bodies. And they'd say, oh, how do you like my gimmick? And I'd look at them, and Luke would look at them and say, oh, well, what's your gimmick? And they'd say, oh, I'm so-and-so. And I say, well, what's the gimmick in that? Anyway, and then we'd go and watch their matches. Oh, my God. Now, it wasn't their fault because they didn't know any different. But it was very, very bad. It was even worse than when we were wrestling in New Zealand, hadn't seen wrestling on TV, but knew the basics from the English guys who were coming out there. So anyway, but there were some spot shows that were run professionally and were bigger, and you could see them night and day. And then the more guys that WWE released, the better the shows were, because there was more of them landing in the shows. And so we were very lucky that the people still loved us no matter what. And we had them cheering for us the whole time. And then we went and we thoroughly enjoyed this. I don't know if you guys know this, but we went and worked for your armed services in the United States. I still have my card. It's like a driver's license. Then it says, armed services, blah, 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 Butch Miller, Bushwhacker. And that was our pass on to, we could go on to nearly any barracks around the place. And we went and entertained the troops in all around Alaska and different parts of the Carolinas. Then we went into Japan, did a lot of shows in Japan, Korea, and anyway, we just off the Bahamas. We did a lot of stuff all over for them and their bases, and that was just tremendous. Now they were guys and women, of course, who watched us in the States when they were there, when we were having a little push in WWE. So when we came to their barracks or wherever they were based, they just absolutely loved us. I mean, the only ones who they loved better than us was the women's match, because boy, did those guys scream when the woman came on. You can imagine, Yeah, it was funny. But we really loved that, and we did a lot of tours of all over the place. Kuwait as well was another one. A few other places, Saudi Arabia. That was the one I was trying to think of. We had a base. You guys had a base in there, and it was just tremendous entertaining those troops and seeing them get off on the on us, being there and entertaining them. That was a lot of fun. I'd give anything to do that again if I had my time. And then I don't know if you know this, but when we were working for Grand Prix as the Kiwis and as heels, we worked in a few Canadian state prisons around that place. And they would bring us into the state prisons. And of course, we would get searched and everything else. And we'd put on matches for the prisoners. And that Vashon woman,
Luna
Beverly. She was a great thing there. Paul and the other guy's sister, and she would go in there, and of course she'd allow one of the bloody prisoners to come in into the dressing room and cop a feel or something, or she'd give them a little bit of a grope. Wow, Jesus, they loved that. Well, they got more chairs than anybody. The women's match, Vivian for sure.
Vivian for sure.
Vivian for sure.
And hey, Butch.
What a talent she was.
Hey, Butch. And you got to admit, yes. you weren't an angel either. What did you do to Clinton at the White House?
Oh yeah, we went to. This is all this stuff I'm talking about, guys, is all in the book. So you can imagine what the book's full of. It's just unreal, some of the stuff we got up to. But if Luke was here, he would remind me, and I'd remind him, and then we feed off each other, and that's how we can bring the memory back. It's very hard to bring the memory back 30 years ago, 40 years ago, when I'm sitting here like this, just by myself, even with John. But yeah, we every Easter, the WWE used to send one of its talent or to the White House for the kids' Easter egg hunt. So this particular day, the Clintons were in power, if that's what you call it. And we went to the White House to entertain the kids. The next minute, the security guard comes out of the White House, and we're just outside. And he comes out with this cat on a leash. And he walks the cat out with a leash and that. And I take one look at this cat. And I said to the guy, "Oh, whose cat's that?" And I said, "Oh, that's the Clintons' cat, you know." And I said, "Oh, do you mind if I pick it up?" And they said, no, you can pick it up. And I love animals anyway. I've got a thing with animals. I just love animals. So I pick up this bloody cat. Security guards let me. Well, I gave this cat a big lick from its mouth, right up over its ears, right around over its head. I gave it the licking of its life. I'm not kidding you. Wow. That was in the magazines, in the papers, everything. Bushwhacker Butch licks Clinton's pussy. That's how it was said. And it was just so funny. And then it used to say, "What has George Steinbrenner?" And that guy used to have his own show in the mornings. He used to have his own show every morning for years and years and years. We were on his show as well. He had a woman with him.
Oh, yeah.
Regis. Anyway, I said, "What does George Steinbrenner, Regis, and Clinton's pussy have in common?" And they was a questionnaire. And they had this big, a lot of people here sitting there, and they're looking, and they said, "Well, actually, it was Butch the Bushwhacker licked them all." And boy, did they start laughing. They couldn't believe it. They were all slimed by Butch the Bushwhacker. And that's a fact, yeah. Because I would do things like that off the cuff without really even thinking. It's just I've been like that. As I said, my mad Irish father. Yeah. But that was funny. That was very funny. But then we did some sitcoms with the Family Matters. That was interesting and great. And Urkel, we wrestled Urkel and his uncle in a match, and that was fantastic. And I remember looking. There was an audience person there, put in there to make up the crowd around the ring. And on our way to the ring, we'd come out marching. Her job was to stand up in front of me to give her a slime from up here, and get in the ring. Well, we had to do this over and over about 3 or 4 times, because that's the way they do it in those shows. Then they pick the best, whatever the best one was. But I didn't know that she was plastered with all this bloody makeup and shit all over her face to look better for the cameras. Wow. After licking her about 3 or 4 times, I got sick. The last take, I'm in the bloody corner, spewing in the corner, and my throat dried up. My whole throat dried up from the makeup. From her and this Family Matters, yeah. There was another bloody thing. I wish I'd never started that bloody licking. Yeah. Luke used to do it the right way. He would put his hand over their head and he'd lick his hand. That was a good way, a better way to do it. But that to me was a bit cowardly. was the same as I never used to put my hands up. I never used to put my hands up when someone slammed a chair over my head. And that's why I'm like I am today, half goofy, because I got hit by those bloody chairs sometimes so hard it rattled things. But anyway, I'm still here. I still have a head. See, still good. Yeah.
Last question for you, Butch. We've seen Luke. We've seen Luke in the ring very recently. What are you doing these days?
I'm completely retired, as you can imagine, and my good wife is looking after me as good as possible, and it's nice to be home with a family, because that was very hard for me on the road. I was married with two lovely girls, and there was no cell phones in those days. The whole time we were the Sheepherders, there was no cell phones. And it was very, very hard to get to a hotel, to get the right time. Because right now in New Zealand, here, it's 18 minutes past midday on the 1st of April. So, and then the time changes that you would have going around the world and catching my family on the right time when they were home and not at school or work or anything was so very, very hard. So I unfortunately lost my wife through that. And my second wife, Julie, who I was married to nearly the whole time I was a bushwhacker, I had to thank her for all she had to put up with, because she'd only see me 3 to 4 days a month. I'd be on the road the rest of the time, Luke and I would be together all the time. We stayed in the same hotels. At the start, we stayed in the same rooms. We drove in the same car. We wrestled in the same matches, blah, blah. And you got to have a special bond with somebody to do that. Not only to do what Luke and I did, but to also do what my first wife and my second wife did and keep it going. And I said in the book, and I'll say it again, and my current wife, I've nearly forgotten her name. Hello, Helen. It's Helen. Anyway, she knows me, thank God. I introduce her as my future ex-wife, and she does not like it.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Hey, Butch,
I wonder why.
Just for clarification, you said it's April 1st.
As I was saying about my wives, I said in the book, I still love the whole 3 of my wives, but I'm only in love with my current wife. How can I not love the woman that gave me 2 beautiful daughters, and they're still the most beautiful people in the world? How can I not love my second wife that put up with so much shit and got me through all that wrestling and WWE and injuries and nursed me? And how can I not say that I appreciate my wife now, who looks after me and everything else? And I'm just so thankful that in my life I've had 3 of the most beautiful women that I could ever imagine, and they are all very similar in their ways. They can be bitches at times. No, only joking. They're lovely. No, lovely. I'm so lucky. Luckily, there's no one listening there.
Hey, Butch, I did want to clarify.
What's that, John?
I don't want you to get confused. You said it was April 1st there. It's September 1st. You said it was April 1st a minute ago. It's September 1st.
Yeah.
I didn't want you to get out and miss any meetings or anything like that.
A couple months difference doesn't matter, right?
Yeah.
last month's on that. Okay.
Guys,
Very
the book
good.
is Blood, Sweat, and Cheers by John Crowther. If this is just a taste of what's in the book, then guys, if you're a wrestling fan, if you're a fan of the Sheepherders, teeny. Butch says it's teeny.
Yeah.
So just imagine what else is in there. John, is there anything else wrestling related or anything else for that matter that you're working on at the moment?
Well, right now I'm focusing obviously on the Bushwhackers. I will say, yeah, like Butch said, this is just a teeny taste of what you'll find in that book. Just you can imagine for over a year, I was having these conversations with both Butch and Luke. There are stories in there that fans have never heard before. They don't hold punches. They really throw a lot out there, a lot of humor, a lot of really heart-touching stories. A lot of good wrestling stories, a lot of good history stories. So I think fans will really enjoy it. I guess I'll drop it here. Here's a little surprise. I haven't discussed this with anyone other than the people involved. I've currently got about 40 guys signed up, and what's going to follow the Bushwhackers book is a little title I like to call The Pro Wrestling Cookbook, From Body Slams to Frying Pans. And we've got about 40 wrestlers from WWE, WCW, NWA, AEW, New Japan, Glow Wrestling, all involved in this with their favorite recipes. They've either got them from their mamas or from the road or from their grandmas. It's going to be a really cool book, kind of in the style of that WWE encyclopedia. And I think fans are going to love it. So look for that around this time next year.
Take my money now, John. Take it now. I'll find a place to eat.
Guys, this was amazing.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Butch.
I'm sorry we had the trouble with the voice, but thank you very much, guys. I look forward to you reading it so you can tell us what it's like. Right. Thank you.
For sure.
Yay.
All right. That was awesome, John. Let me end this so we can chat for a minute.